Antonio, Tulia, and Meldanine, and thank you once again for joining me. My name is Lord Aramil, and today I am running on my new laptop. So things might be a little bit messy. I haven't gotten everything quite as set up as I would like it to be, but you know, that is the price of a significant upgrade from the last laptop I owned, and even from the laptop I was borrowing for the past month or so. So, today we are thinking with portals. Specifically, how portals work in Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. And to a greater or lesser extent, this can be extrapolated to any edition of Dungeons & Dragons. It really doesn't matter. So, you can play around with these ideas, have them show up wherever you like, really. Portals are fun. And I'm going to give a few interesting portal... the description sounds wrong, but the ideas behind all these portals. Now, I am still just trying to, get myself set up. I'm sorry. Like I said, this was a bit of a to-do to get it all, to get my settings back up, and I realized like half an hour ago that I had to do that. So, oh well. Now, portals. There are different types of portals. There are your standard two-way portals. So, you go in one side, you come out the other side, you go in the other side, you come out the first side, all is fine. And those are, I hesitate to use the word standard, but that's what people generally like to think about. But there are many different kinds of portals. There are one-way portals. Those are fun. And for each of these different types, I'm going to try and come up with an example or two. So for this one, I'm going to state, or I'm going to regale you, I should say, with a tale from a campaign long ago that lasted for 6 years. Yes, my father's campaign, where we were in his dungeon. And his dungeon has such a complicated network of portals. And almost all of them are one way. So they look like just a massive black wall, alright? And if you're on the wrong side, it's just solid. I think we've even been able to draw on them in chalk. They're just non-reactive entirely. Now, the problem with that is that when we started the campaign, we were not as careful as we would be in later years. So one of the characters just kind of got bored one day and said, I'ma jump through. Wait, what? Boom. And off he goes. And he hopped through, and it's like, oh, well, this is kind of shit. And he hopped back, but he didn't go back to where we were. Instead, it was another one-way portal. So the first portal was here, took him to here, which then took him to there, and we hopped like 4 or 5 times, just completely at random. Just bouncing around this massive dungeon with no idea where we were, where we were going. It was a bit of a nightmare, and we, being like level 1, level 2, we came shockingly close to just starving to death. So, fun stuff that. Now, after one-way portals, you get things like portals that require a key. Now, keyed portals can also be very fun, as one of my players found out very recently. And I'm going to spoil it a bit, mainly because I'm pretty sure no one else in that party watches my videos. Yeah. Well, wait, one does. Oh. Okay, then I'll use a different. I'll use a different version. Yeah. So the players are in a dungeon. They know that on the other side of this portal is one of the places that they have to go. All right. Again, they're searching for the 12 magical MacGuffins, and one of the MacGuffins is on the other side. Okay. Now they're exploring, and they come across some merchants, heavily armed and armored and all that good stuff. And they've the merchants have taken this cave and said, "Okay, we're set up here, and yeah, we're pretty good here, and we're going to sell overpriced equipment to adventurers who wander through, because this is a massive dungeon that a lot of adventurers wander through." Okay, cool. By the way, this is coming from Undermountain. So I've griped about Undermountain, but it does do quite a few good things too. So credit where credit is due. And one of the things that these merchants sell are basically the portal keys. They've got these little clay figurines, which either are or somehow contain the portal key that you need. So you buy this portal key from them, or are given, and then you can use this portal elsewhere. Good stuff. Now, to get the portal key, which is very expensive, the players are instead doing a side mission, which is all well and good. But the point is that they can't activate the portal unless they have this key. Cool. A different type of key for a portal is a spoken phrase, sometimes at a specific time. Back to my father's campaign, we had a patron figure who I should have mentioned in my patron video. Huh. Oh well. But his name was Elias. Alright, Elias the Wizard. Now, Elias lived near and very, very far from a small hamlet. And that's one reason why portals are so fun. So you would go to this little bowl-shaped depression, okay, near the hamlet. And at noon, I think it had to be like at noon, you would stand in the depression and say, "Elias, Elias, Elias," and you would teleport to a similar bowl-shaped depression right in the courtyard of this wizard. So for that, I'm gonna have to put up my hair. I'm gonna keep fiddling with it because I can see it getting out of place. Alright. But for that, you have a phrase and a time. There, much better. And that's kind of a double key, two locks for the same door, as it were. And this is pretty effective. If you don't know the time nor the phrase, you can't access the portal. Cool. One more, which I will take from Undermountain, and I'm going to include this as a key, but it's really kind of a special action. But special action and key, I'm kind of lumping together. And that one, it doesn't even look like a portal. It looks like somebody took some chalk and crudely drew a doorway, which is even funnier. Uh, but then next to that, they wrote back in to move on. And simply enough, what you would do is you would walk backwards through this portal. And it only worked when you walked backwards. If you tried to go forwards, you meet wall. And that's just funny. Yeah, I think it's funny at least. Kind of a platform 9 3/4 effect, in a way. So, I enjoy portals. Portals are funny. Portals can be a lot of fun. Let's see, what else is good? Now, in Forgotten Realms, at least, portals are, hesitate to say common. They are reasonably known. There are a lot of portals. There's an above average amount of portals, I guess, in Forgotten Realms, which is one of the places where I've been spending a lot of my lore time. So we're going to keep with that. And you can understand why. Portals are very expensive to make, but once they have been made, they're pretty invaluable. If you're a merchant, say, and you want to move exotic goods from one metropolis all the way across the continent to another, a portal that even cuts that travel time in half is worth hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of gold pieces per trip. So you can imagine that larger merchant consortiums or trading companies would want a lot of portals. And these portals would be trade secrets, basically. Maybe well guarded, maybe having, a key and a phrase and a time. All these, factors which will make it less likely for the average goat to wander through and more likely for your and only your caravans to get through. Not to mention, it's perfectly safe to go through these portals. You're not having to worry about brigands or trolls or a dragon swooping down and stealing your cargo. I have one single hair now. In my face. So there's that. There's a lot of reason why you would want a lot of portals. Now, these are mainly arcane portals. Portals created by wizards. I'm certain there are natural portals. As a matter of fact, I'm actually certain there are natural portals. And we're going to talk about one. And this would be the Fey Crossroads and Backroads, which my party has also used in my Forgotten Realms wanderings. And yeah, let's see here. Basically, what they are. Imagine. It's hard to describe a crossroad because it's not clearly marked. These are almost never clearly marked. Alright? Instead, there are several famous ones. And these also can be one-way or two-way. Okay. Important to know. But you might come across a famous crossroad. And each crossroad has a guardian who you must convince to let you pass through. And if not, no. Just no. And each individual person must convince the guardian to let them through. Alright. Now, that's one place where it gets tricky. Because, yeah, if you've got a party of 5 or 6, and one of those people isn't charismatic at all, either you're splitting the party across hundreds of miles, or you need to find a different route. That almost happened in my campaign. It's a very lucky roll from one of my characters prevented such a massive split in the party. No, to be fair, they were smart about it, and nobody actually crossed through until everyone had convinced him. So, okay, well done, party. You properly thought about it and didn't break rule like 1 of D&D. Good job. And boy, does that make my life easier, because I don't want to have to run 2 separate parties separated by hundreds of miles. But I digress. As mentioned, these things really do sorry, I just realized that I wasn't looking at the live chat. Hello, Claren. Alright. So these things do indeed go very far. Usually, it's a fey thing, so you could probably find a crossroad that only gives you a few feet. Who knows? But in this case, they traveled like a quarter of the continent. So, well, maybe not even a quarter. Either way, they saved themselves a lot of time. Probably several months? No. Several weeks. 10 days. Technically 10 days. Forgotten Realm week is 10 days, so they just call it a 10-day. Which, linguistically, yes. That's probably what it would become, but it just feels weird. Oh well. Now, some of these Fey crossroads and backroads are one way only. And this is generally when a Fey Guardian is destroyed. So you can't just, get up to the Fey Crossroads, fail to get in, beat up the Guardian, and then, go through. No, now the door is permanently sealed. You cannot pass anymore. Good job. You fucked up. Right. But instead, we're here. You have to play nice, is basically what it boils down to. These are Fey. You play nice. You don't take anything that isn't given freely, and stated to be free. I had something else that I was going to go with that, but I've completely forgotten. Oh. Now, of course, portals don't always just lead from one place on the material plane to another. Portals between, not spheres, between planes. Wow. I need some Dr. Pepper. Stat. I need 30 cc's of Dr. Pepper just pumped into my bloodstream. Okay. Planes for portals. Portals for planes. Okay. Buffering. This is the main way to get from one plane to another. Alright. So there are, of course, spells such as plane shift, which will allow you to go from plane A to plane B, but usually it is just easier to have a portal, especially if you're trying to get back and forth or trying to bring a significant number of people from one place to another. Now, this is one of the things that played a very cinematic role in my Defense of Waterdeep campaign. If you'll recall, there's a massive Mind Flayer invasion fleet coming from the sky. They haven't arrived yet, but the powers that be, specifically Kelvin and Elminster, have decided that, or have divined, we'll say, that Waterdeep is going to be the epicenter of this massive invasion. Yes. Yeah. Now, they figure that they need to quickly set up a refugee camp elsewhere, where the majority of the populace will be safe. Now, they're thinking a long siege, so they can't just dump these people in another city and assume it'll be okay. I know that Waterdeep has portals to at least Silvery Moon, but at least my thinking, and ergo their thinking, was that Silvery Moon is also likely a target, and it wouldn't do Silvery Moon's defense any favors if they just dropped the majority of the Waterdeep population on them. So instead, basically, they set up a portal to the plane of elemental earth, which is probably one of the safer planes to go to, honestly. As long as you find a large enough cave, you're basically okay. There are plenty of things that will mess you up on the plane of elemental earth, I know. In the description, or in the comment section, please go ahead and tell me why this is a flawed plan, but my players bought it anyways. Mainly because it was the first and thus far only time I have ever pulled out a 10th level spell. Yes. So normally, creating a portal, it has its own feat. It is a time-consuming and expensive process, but Elminster and Kelvin got together, and they're like, okay, we need to do this now, so here we go. And the players got to witness the casting of a 10th level spell. Now, that casting included both Elminster and Kelvin as casters, and I'm trying to remember who else. I think it was the Lady Illustriel of Silvery Moon was there as not an aid, more as a guard. Alright? Because a 10th level spell, there's a whole list of reasons why 10th level spells. Oh yeah, and Lara Silverhand, thank you. There's a whole list of reasons why 10th level spells are dangerous. But I figured that, these beings, being chosen of Mystra, have a little bit more leeway, and they basically personally invoke their deity, and like, hi, boss, ma'am, we'd like to do this thing, please. And I think that helped to drive home just how important this was, because, up until this point, I have been, properly conveying that these are figures of great and terrible power that you do not fuck with. So Kelvin is leagues above their power. Ilminster's leagues above their power. The characters have been pretty convincingly awed. See my video on patrons and whatnot. Patrons and mentors, that's it. So, seeing these characters humbled really helped to drive home that awe. So, pretty cool, especially when Mistra showed up, and she was like, "Okay, yes, go on, continue. I'm watching." At which point, Kelvin and Elminster begin their casting, and Illustriel and Leril begin their casting. And what they did was they erected a barrier around Elminster and Kelvin. And this was... I'm getting really off topic. Oh well, it's a really cool scene. I think it's a really cool scene. Because basically every evil wizard and enemy of Kelvin or Elminster was able to detect, oh shit, they're in the middle of a really big ritual casting that I could fuck up pretty quickly because a lot of their defenses are down. Shoot them now. You get the idea. So there was a very impressive display of fireworks on the edges of this barrier, and the players were sufficiently... I think it was a very sufficiently cinematic description that really got the players excited, and at the same time, and very importantly, it showed the players that they were on the edge of a so much larger battle. Not quite part of it, but just stepping into this larger world. And I think they were level 8 at the time, something like that, 8, 9, something like that. So, being able to still induce that almost level 1 awe is, that's important. You need to be able to keep that up, even as they get higher levels. But in the end, either way, the mages make the portal, and the civilians are successfully evacuated to these caves in the plane of elemental earth. And that was important for my campaign because that allowed a city battle, or what I was planning for there to be a city battle. Not for them to just take the fight to the enemy ships. I wasn't expecting that, and kudos for them. But it basically took the innocent bystanders out of the equation. And that was just for my benefit as much as for the players' benefit. I didn't want to have to worry about, how many people were going to be caught in the crossfire. If the people were in the city, they were combatants. Done deal. Which is, of course, one important thing to think about for portals is portals should serve the narrative. Which is, I hesitate to use the word mistake, but I kind of goofed, personally, this past Tuesday, because a player accidentally went through a portal. She accidentally had acquired a key somewhere along her journey. And yeah, the portal reacted. Just to her, though. And not to anyone else, because they didn't have the key. I won't say what the key is, of course, because that's far too on the nose, and Claren would then have an advantage. But point is that whether it was tied to being a gnome, having a light source, or any other item or phrase that she may or may not have said while in the room, that character was whisked away from the rest of the party, who were left dumbfounded and, for half of them, very suddenly in the dark, in a literal as well as a figurative sense. So that's something that we get to play out this coming Tuesday, which will be fun. Just them figuring out. I won't spoil it, Claren. I will not tell you whether it was or was not the silver raven that she found. Yes. But what I will say is that it's going to be a lot of fun having them go through and try to figure out what the key was. Alright? And how they can then go forth and get this person back. Or at least regroup. And of course, this other player, Venus, she can't communicate with the rest of the party. They don't have any spells to communicate back and forth. Who knows? Who knows? Well, if it was the Raven, and you had the Raven, then you would be the one on your own. So, would it have helped? We don't know. But that does lead me to kind of an awkward situation as a DM, because I never intended to actually use this portal. I had almost forgotten about it until the characters actually reached this room, and I was flipping through the Undermountain book, and I was like, oh yeah, there's a portal here. What is it? Oh, huh. And now, yeah, this character is suddenly in a part of the dungeon that is for, like, I'm trying to find exactly. Okay, yeah, so, by the end of this chapter, supposedly, the characters should be at least level 6. And if memory serves, these characters are level, what, 4? 3 or 4? 4. Right? Claren, correct me if I'm wrong. So not only is this player alone, but she is in an area of the dungeon that is well above her pay grade. Now, to be fair, yeah, we just leveled 4, right. If there was any character who was more capable, no. She is the most capable out of the entire party to survive on her own. She is a scout druid, so she's got healing magic and the ability to sneak around and pick locks and that good stuff. So, a decent combatant, and just small and capable of hiding. All of which are really good things when you are way out of your comfort zone. But like I was more getting to, portals are an easy way to serve the narrative. If your characters have to make a long journey, maybe they hear about a portal that will cut the journey in half. These are especially helpful if you're not a fan of long journeys. I know that I'm hesitant about long journeys because a painfully long journey can drag on, especially if your DM is an unflinching stickler for realism in its own way. I love my father. I love my father as a DM, and I want to make that perfectly clear before I state that a long distance journey in my father's campaign was the most boring and tedious thing of my, well, not of my life, but of my D&D career. All right, because every day he would roll for weather and calculate how that would influence our travel time, any miscellaneous happenings along the road, and like there was some interest. There were plenty of interesting things that happened along the way, but as the note taker, okay, I just had like day 12 rainy, changing to mildly cloudy in the afternoon, made this distance X far to go. And just again and again and again. And each day took probably like, I don't know, 10 minutes. Which isn't bad, but if you're journeying for like a month, let us get to the city already, please. Oh gods. Why? You understand. So, a portal which takes you from point A to point B can be very helpful. And in that vein, it can serve as its own adventure. Getting to the portal, researching the portal, figuring out what the code phrase was. Well, is it in a dialect that is still spoken even? Is there a key which is basically non-existent anymore? What if it's from a previous kingdom and the key is a gold piece from that kingdom that you toss into the portal ahead of you? Alright? Well, that could be an issue if that kingdom fell hundreds of years ago and, their coins are extremely rare, having been, collected and melted down and reminted for the current kingdom. So, how do you get an ancient coin? How do you get a phrase that is in a dialect that isn't spoken anymore, let alone a completely extinct language? Just think if, I don't know, it's the difference of a phrase in Etruscan, alright, or basically co-opted by the Romans at the very beginning of the Republic, versus, say, just, and it could be extremely awkward, too. Like, if the portal was crafted within the past 100 years, but it uses language that just isn't spoken anymore, that's not groovy, daddy-o. Being the passphrase will definitely throw your players off. And that's one of my favorite things to that kind of thing is one thing that I really enjoy putting my players through is dialectual differences. Like, you can understand them technically, but boy does it sound weird. And obviously they're not actually saying groovy or whatnot, but it evokes the same cognitive dissonance, I guess, in the player as the character is receiving. So that's a kind of a Tolkien-esque way of saying, this is an outdated form of the language that is being spoken. the Rohirrim don't actually speak Old English. They just speak a stilted form of Westron. You are right on time. Oh, only a baby. Oh, it has been too long since you were on camera. Yes. Say hello to your adoring public. Yes. Oh, she's purring. Mm. Mm. And I am now Putty. Putty in her hands, aren't I? Aren't I? But yes, there we go. Yeah. But yeah, portals are helpful. Um, Finding portals, being able to use portals can be adventures all on their own. And once the players figure out a portal, they can be extremely useful. Going back to my father's campaign, using a portal to get from one part of the dungeon to another that we are reasonably, or at least within a reasonable margin of error, are certain of, that suddenly opens up a whole nother area of exploration. And when we were higher level, we even made small use of that. Generally, we stuck to the old-fashioned, exploration, but every so often, we're level 6. We'll take a risk. I can cast Create Food and Water. We're not gonna starve. Such a good girl. Yes. Yes, you are. Oh. Nope. Can't get the chair any higher. Oh well. It's okay. Yes. There we go. Well, I think that's about all I had on portals. So both the arcane as well as the Fey crossroads and backroads. There are, of course, I hesitate to use the word natural portals, but portals which appear for getting from one plane to another that are natural and not, or at least are, I keep using them. Nobody created them. They just kind of happen. Bleed through effects. And this can create really interesting areas in your world. Maybe a volcano has erupted not because of, tectonics, but because a large portal to the elemental plane of fire is in its heart. Maybe there is a very lush oasis in the middle of the desert because there's a small portal to the elemental plane of water. So on and so forth. So play around with it. And portals aren't always useful. Like the past two examples, they can just be really cool scenery. You could have a waterfall just up in the middle of the air because a portal to the elemental plane of water the size of, a quarter is acting like a geyser. Right? Maybe the tiniest portal to the elemental plane of air is how the lowest levels of the Underdark have breathable air. It's your world. Think about it. Alright. And with that in mind, thank you all for watching. Thank you for joining me today. And until we meet again, dear friends, farewell.